Hopeless justice idiot. That's what Donald Trump spat across the hearing room, sneering at Jasmine Crockett, the woman daring to challenge the most powerful man in America. In the next 60 seconds, she would expose $2.7 billion in hidden funds, unravel decades of political corruption, and face down a president who had threatened over 300 whistleblowers without blinking. Every word she spoke cut through the lies like a knife. Every glance from Trump screamed arrogance, and the cameras captured it all. By the end of this hearing, millions across the nation would be glued to their screens, witnessing a confrontation that could reshape justice in America, and one woman's fight that made even the most untouchable man hesitate. The gavel struck, echoing like a gunshot through the packed chamber. Trump's hands slammed the table moments later, the sound rattling microphones and sending a shiver down the spine of every journalist, senator, and aide present. "She's nothing but a puppet," he barked, voice dripping with contempt, his eyes narrowing as they locked onto Jasmine Crockett. The words hung in the air like smoke from a burning fuse. Everyone in the room froze, the usual hum of whispered speculation silenced by the sheer audacity of the insult. Cameras swung toward Jasmine, capturing every fraction of a second of what would become a historic showdown. Jasmine did not flinch. She didn't blink, didn't step back. Her gaze was razor sharp, cutting through Trump's arrogance as she leaned forward slightly, voice calm but piercing. "The truth will crush your fake power, and history will remember it." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Reporters instinctively reached for their notebooks, fingers trembling over keyboards, knowing that every word, every gesture, every nuance could become the headline of the hour. Senators straightened in their seats, some mouths ajar, as the tension thickened like a storm cloud ready to burst. Trump's smirk faltered, ever so slightly. He leaned back, a flash of disbelief crossing his face. For a man accustomed to commanding rooms with a mere glance or dismissive smirk, this wasn't a challenge he had encountered before. This wasn't another scripted hearing or a compliant congresswoman. This was Jasmine Crockett, and she was not intimidated. "You have no idea what you're stepping into," Trump snarled, attempting to regain his footing, pounding the table once again, rattling documents and microphones. "I understand perfectly," Jasmine replied, voice unwavering, words measured but sharp enough to slice through the tension. "I see $2.7 billion in hidden funds, the hundreds of whistleblowers you tried to silence, and the lives you've destroyed under your watch. That empire ends here." A murmur swept through the room. Reporters leaned closer, pens moving frantically, some of them whispering into phones. Social media notifications erupted in real time. Hashtags trending, millions of viewers already glued to their screens as the clash of two titans unfolded live before the nation. Trump's chest heaved, the arrogance giving way to a flicker of unease. He attempted a scoff, a dismissive laugh, but it caught in his throat, drowned out by the silent intensity of Jasmine's stare. Every word she spoke was precise, surgical, methodical. Every gesture, each subtle lean, each measured pause, amplified the power behind her statements. "You think documents and witnesses will stop me?" Trump barked, voice rising, trying to regain control, to dominate the room as he had done so many times before. Jasmine tilted her head slightly, almost pityingly, a ghost of a smile brushing her lips. "It's not a few documents. It's the story of over 300 whistleblowers you tried to bury. The millions silenced by your policies, and the decades of lies that have built your empire. That's what stops you." Haturi. The air grew electric. Cameras captured the tension in excruciating detail. Every shutter click, every flash reflected the gravity of the moment. Journalists instinctively knew they were witnessing history, a confrontation destined to be dissected for years to come. Trump slammed his hand down once more, trying to reclaim authority, but the room no longer belonged to him. Jasmine's calm precision had seized it, her words, her presence, her unwavering gaze. It was as if a storm had arrived in human form, sweeping through the room with undeniable force. Time seemed to stretch. Seconds slowed. Jasmine placed a single page on the desk. Proof, undeniable, irrefutable. The room leaned in collectively, sensing the weight of what had just landed on the table. Murmurs escalated, the whispers now an undercurrent of tension, excitement, and disbelief. Even Trump's closest allies shifted nervously. The confident veneer he wore was cracking, hairline fractures running through the armor of power he had so long relied upon. Jasmine didn't celebrate. She didn't smile. She simply stood, tall and unyielding, the embodiment of justice in motion, letting her presence speak louder than words. As the cameras panned across the room, capturing every reaction, every gasp, every tension-filled pause, the stage was set. A historic confrontation had begun, and no one, not even the most untouchable man in America, could ignore the force of truth facing him. And for those watching, this was only the beginning. To follow the full story of Jasmine Crockett's relentless fight against corruption, injustice, and the most powerful men in the country, make sure to subscribe to Harrison Stories, where every untold truth finds its voice. And for those watching, this was only the beginning. The gavel's echo still lingered in the chamber, a reminder that the confrontation between Jasmine Crockett and Donald Trump, the most powerful men in the country, was about to ignite beyond any precedent. Trump leaned forward, eyes narrowing, a smirk curling at the corner of his mouth. "You know, Ms. Crockett," he began, voice low and venomous, "your history is interesting. Do you really think anyone cares about a lawyer who once struggled in court? Or a woman whose every decision has been dissected, criticized, and mocked?" The words struck like deliberate jabs, aimed at undermining her credibility, at dragging her personal life into this public arena. The chamber froze. Reporters raised pens and cameras. Senators shifted in their seats, some with jaws slack, others with narrowed eyes. Trump wasn't merely speaking, he was weaponizing her past, throwing shadows over her every achievement, trying to destabilize her before the real fight began. Jasmine didn't flinch, not a twitch, not a blink. She leaned slightly forward, letting the full weight of her gaze rest on him. Calm, measured, yet laced with quiet fire, she slid a thick folder across the table. The sharp sound punctuated the silence, reverberating through microphones and shaking the nerves of everyone present. "These are the documents you wanted buried," she said, voice precise, almost surgical. "Contracts, financial records, emails, proof of $2.7 billion siphoned through shell companies, executives rewarded for silence, and policies protecting corruption. This is not opinion. This is evidence." The chamber erupted. Pens scribbled, cameras swiveled, flashes lit every corner. Across the country, live streams surged to over 3.2 million viewers, hearts pounding, eyes wide, riveted by the spectacle unfolding in real time. What had begun as a hearing was transforming into an arena of moral combat. Trump's smirk faltered. He tried to respond, pounding the table, but his words stumbled over the force of Jasmine's precision. The past attacks he had thrown at her, the insults, the casual mockery, were now irrelevant. Jasmine's calm authority had turned his weapon against him. "You really think a folder of papers will stop me?" he snapped, pounding the desk again. "They're not just papers," Jasmine replied, lifting the folder slightly, letting the weight of truth resonate. "They are the lives you've destroyed, the 300 whistleblowers you tried to silence, the millions ignored under your policies. This is the proof that no empire, no amount of influence, can shield you from accountability." A collective gasp spread through the chamber. Senators leaned forward, reporters whispered into phones, and social media exploded. Comments, hashtags, and live reactions trended instantly. Crockett vs. Trump, genre justice uncovered, genre truth wins. Millions more tuned in, unable to look away as the duel escalated beyond politics into something primal, a fight for justice itself. Trump slammed his hand again, voice rising in frustration. "One woman, one folder. You think this changes anything?" Jasmine tilted her head slightly, almost pitying. "One woman standing on truth is stronger than decades of lies, fear, and silence. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to hold you accountable. And I will." The chamber hummed with tension. Supporters of Trump whispered anxiously, some shaking heads, some leaning in, caught in the magnetism of the clash. Senators exchanged knowing glances, understanding that this was no longer a debate over policy. It was a duel of truth versus facade, and Jasmine had taken the first decisive strike. The folder slid forward, pages fanning out, revealing contracts, emails, internal memos, proof meticulously cataloged. Each document a blow to the veneer of control Trump had maintained for decades. The room collectively leaned in, sensing the weight of this opening salvo. Even Trump's most loyal allies shifted uneasily. His authority, long unquestioned, seemed to waver. Every gesture appeared smaller, every word less commanding. Jasmine had seized the room, turning his attack into the very ammunition that dismantled his dominance. Time seemed to stretch. Cameras captured every subtle reaction, every tightening of jaws, every widening of eyes. Viewers felt it too, hearts pounding, breaths caught, the understanding dawning that this confrontation was not merely procedural, but historical. Trump opened his mouth to strike back, but hesitation flickered in his eyes. Jasmine's calm, unwavering presence had claimed the battlefield. Her first strike, surgical and merciless, had landed. And now everyone in the chamber, and millions more watching, understood. This was a war fought with words, evidence, and courage, and the stakes had never been higher. Then with a guttural bellow, Trump leaned forward, veins pulsing at his temples, fists slamming the table. "You are a threat to America," he shouted, voice booming, echoing off the marble walls, ricocheting through the stunned chamber. "A danger to everything this country stands for." The words hung like lightning in the air, sharp and searing, intended to intimidate. The chamber fell into a charged silence, everyone caught between disbelief and anticipation. Reporters instinctively raised pens, cameras zooming in on every twitch of muscle, every flicker of expression. The live stream audience spiked to over 4.5 million, each viewer captivated by the intensity that could be felt even through screens. Jasmine Crockett leaned forward, unyielding, her gaze locking onto Trump with a precision that could cut steel. Her voice was steady, each syllable deliberate, carrying a weight that transcended the room itself. "A threat?" she asked, tilting her head slightly, eyes blazing. "Tell me, Mr. President, when did America become stronger because of your promises? When did honesty outweigh manipulation? When did the rights of the people ever matter more than your personal gain?" Her questions struck like thunderclaps, each one tearing at the veil of authority Trump had so meticulously maintained. Every senator in the chamber sat forward, eyes wide. Reporters stopped scribbling for a moment, the pens froze in midair. The nation was watching a spectacle unlike anything before. A verbal duel, a battlefield of words and truth, electrified by stakes no one could deny. Trump's jaw tightened, nostrils flaring, a bead of sweat tracing the side of his face as his fingers dug into the polished wood of the desk. The camera panned close, veins pulsing on his neck, eyes darting, lips curling with rage and disbelief. Every muscle seemed taut, ready to explode, but the explosion had to contend with the calm inferno of Jasmine's unwavering focus. "You've misled this country at every turn," she continued, voice rising, intensity threading through each word. "You promised walls, prosperity, fairness. But look at the wreckage. Look at the families you've left behind, the laws you've twisted, the corruption you've hidden. You call me a threat, but the truth is, you are the threat." The chamber seemed to vibrate with the force of her words. Senators shifted in their seats, some gasping, some leaning closer, as if drawn in by the electric tension. Cameras zoomed in on every micro-expression, a smirk gone wrong, a flicker of panic, a bead of sweat glistening under the harsh lights. The live-stream comments exploded. "She's relentless. Trump's losing control. I've never seen anything like this." Trump slammed his hand down once more, his voice rising to a guttural growl. "I am the president. I am the law. I am the strength of this nation." "And yet," Jasmine countered, each word sharp as a blade, "you've broken promises you swore to uphold. You've silenced the vulnerable, and you've profited from fear. Strength is not intimidation. Law is not bending rules to protect yourself. And a nation's trust is not something you can command with threats." Her words reverberated through the chamber, settling like a storm, unstoppable, unrelenting. Each phrase peeled back layers of pretense, exposing the raw vulnerability behind Trump's bluster. The spectators, both live and online, were mesmerized, unable to look away from the spectacle of power and accountability colliding in real time. Trump leaned back, face reddening, hands trembling slightly as he tried to regain composure. He opened his mouth, another roar ready to escape, but Jasmine's gaze cut through the tension like lightning, silencing even the most instinctive of responses. "Every promise you made," she pressed, stepping closer to the desk. "Every word you uttered in the Oval Office or on camera has been recorded, cross-checked, and held to the light of truth. You call me a threat, yet it is your own record that stands exposed. You fear the spotlight because it reveals what your bluster cannot hide." The chamber was electric. The journalists, senators, aides, everyone felt the intensity as if the walls themselves were charged with static. The confrontation had transcended policy, transcended politics. It had become a primal contest of morality, strategy, and sheer willpower. Every glance, every pause, every calculated word was a strike, and every eye in the room recognized that history was being written in these moments. Trump's lips trembled as he tried to form words, but the force of Jasmine's verbal onslaught had left him momentarily paralyzed. The camera lingered on his expression, gnarled muscles, clenched fists, the faint sheen of sweat, eyes flashing with a mixture of rage and disbelief. Across the nation, millions held their breath, captivated by a duel of words that had become nothing short of legendary. In that room, time seemed to stretch. The clash of personalities, ideals, and raw intellect had transformed a congressional hearing into an arena of justice. Every viewer, senator, and reporter felt it. Jasmine Crockett had delivered the first thunderous strike, and the storm of accountability was only beginning. This was more than a debate. This was history being forged. One question, one exposure, one relentless confrontation at a time. The audience knew that the next move could change everything, and no one dared look away. Jasmine Crockett's hand rested on the thick folder, her calm presence commanding the room. Slowly, deliberately, she opened it, revealing pages stamped "Top Secret," sealed with the marks of a power even the most cautious aides dared not touch. "These are the records you tried to hide," she said, voice steady, slicing through the tension like a sharpened blade. "Emails, contracts, memos, every decision you tried to keep in the shadows. Every attempt to silence accountability is documented here, ready for the nation to see." Trump's eyes widened. His hands shook as he reached for the microphone. "That's classified. You can't," he stammered, panic creeping into his voice. Jasmine didn't flinch. She slid the folder forward, letting its weight speak louder than any argument. "I can," she said quietly. Yet each word carried an unshakable authority. "Because the American people deserve the truth, and I will make sure it is heard." Trump's face flushed crimson. He slammed both hands on the desk, attempting to overpower her with sheer volume. "You're insane. You don't understand what you're doing. This is treason." But the louder he roared, the more fragile he appeared. Each shout exposed fissures in his composure. Every attempt to dominate the room with noise instead of reason only highlighted the growing force of Jasmine's evidence. Reporters leaned forward, pens flying across notebooks. Cameras zoomed in, capturing every twitch, every beat of sweat. Across the nation, live streams surged past 4.5 million viewers, glued to screens, hearts racing as they witnessed a spectacle that seemed almost cinematic in its intensity. Social media exploded. Captured, Trump cornered, Changchun Crockett unmasked, Changchun justice exposed. Jasmine's voice remained calm, measured, cutting through the chaos like a scalpel. "Every action, every memo, every attempt to mislead the public is here. You can scream, you can shout, you can intimidate, but volume is not truth, and power is meaningless without accountability." Trump's aides shifted uneasily, whispering frantically, shuffling papers in a futile attempt to regain control. Senators leaned in, eyes wide, realizing the gravity of what was unfolding. The chamber itself seemed charged, as if electricity pulsed through the air with every word. Trump slammed the microphone again, desperation creeping into his tone. But Jasmine's presence dominated. Her eyes, her voice, her unwavering posture, all combined to make the room understand. The blade had struck, and it had struck true. "The American people trusted you," Jasmine said, leaning forward slightly, eyes locked on his. "They believed your promises. They counted on your integrity. And now, here it all is. Every deception, every betrayal, every lie. You tried to hide it, but truth cannot be buried forever." The chamber trembled with tension. Journalists snapped photos, microphones captured every syllable, and viewers across the nation held their breath. Headlines began forming even as the hearing continued. Trump cornered in political arena. Crockett unmasked corruption. Evidence speaks louder than bluster. Trump's face contorted with frustration and disbelief. He tried again to roar, to reclaim dominance through intimidation. But each word only underscored the strength of Jasmine's revelations. Her calm, relentless precision had stripped away every facade. She closed the folder with a deliberate snap, the sound echoing like a verdict. Stepping back slightly, she allowed the weight of her authority to settle over the chamber. "This is not personal," she said, voice steady, unwavering. "This is accountability, and it begins now." The room hung in suspended tension. The balance of power had shifted dramatically. Trump, once untouchable in his command over rooms and narratives, now reacted defensively, exposed for the first time. Jasmine's strategy, patient, precise, relentless, had turned the tide. Every camera captured it, the expressions of shock, awe, and dawning realization. The audience, both live and online, knew they were witnessing history. The first blade of evidence had struck with surgical precision, and there was no turning back. And for those who wanted to witness every revelation, every blow for truth, and every relentless confrontation in Jasmine Crockett's fight against deception and corruption, subscribe to Harrison's stories. Because some truths are too powerful to remain hidden, and some battles are too critical to miss. The chamber still trembled with the aftershocks of Jasmine Crockett's revelations. Every eye in the room was fixed on her. Every microphone seemed to hang on her words. Trump's face had turned a deep shade of crimson, his fingers curling into fists that slammed against the polished oak desk with a thunderous crack, echoing through the hall. "You are a traitor," he roared, voice cracking with rage, the sound ricocheting off the marble walls. "You dare to stand here, question me, challenge my authority. Miss Crockett, you are a danger to this nation." The words hung heavy in the air, electric, suffocating. Senators froze mid-gesture, reporters' pens hovered in midair, and cameras zoomed in on every twitch of muscle, every subtle flicker of emotion. Across the globe, millions of viewers leaned forward, unable to look away. The world was watching, a single woman confronting the most powerful man in the world with unflinching resolve. Jasmine did not blink. Her gaze was icy steel, unwavering, cold yet fierce. Every line of her posture exuded control, composure, and unshakable authority. She leaned forward just slightly, letting the folder of evidence resting before her serve as a tangible reminder of the truth she wielded. "The traitor," she said, voice deliberate, cutting through the tension like a sharpened blade, "is the one who betrays the truth, who manipulates facts, silences the vulnerable, and shields corruption behind a facade of power. That is the real treason, Mr. President." A hush fell over the chamber. The tension was palpable, dense enough to feel on the skin, crackling like static before a storm. Trump's hands shook slightly, his usual composure eroding under the unrelenting precision of her words. Allies shifted uneasily in their seats, whispering frantically. But the room had already begun to sense the shift. The balance of power had quietly tipped. "You think your words, your theatrics, your papers," Trump barked, voice raw and strained, "can undo decades of leadership, of loyalty, of accomplishments?" Jasmine's eyes flared with intensity. "Accomplishments built on lies are not leadership. Loyalty enforced through fear is not integrity. And a nation's trust is not a commodity to be bought, sold, or shattered at will." You claim to protect this country, yet you betray every principle you swore to uphold. That is the truth I expose. Her words were surgical, each syllable striking with a precision that left no room for evasion. Microphones quivered as they captured every syllable. The camera lingered on Trump, veins pulsing in his neck, fists clenching tighter, eyes darting, a mixture of anger and disbelief painting his face. History was unfolding in real time, the clash between raw power and unwavering truth impossible to ignore. The audience, both in the chamber and millions worldwide, held their breath collectively. Social media erupted with hashtags, Crockett vs. Trump, das truth over power, das political storm. The world felt suspended in a moment where words carried the weight of consequences, and no one dared look away. Trump's hands slammed the desk again, shaking it as if the force could intimidate reality itself. You will regret this. You do not understand who you are facing, he roared. Jasmine's response was a measured strike, calm and lethal. I understand perfectly. I face a man who fears accountability, who hides behind intimidation and spectacle, who confuses power with morality, and I will not back down, not from threats, not from bluster, not from fear. The chamber hummed, every person leaning into the tension, senators exchanging wary glances, reporters adjusting cameras to capture each nuance, every subtle flicker of doubt or rage. Millions of viewers at home felt their hearts race, witnessing a confrontation that was as cinematic as it was historic. Trump's composure cracked further. He opened his mouth again, attempting to roar and dominate, but the words came out fractured, exposing the fissures Jasmine had been probing all along. Each shout, each growl, only reinforced the strength of her calm authority. His intimidation was impotent against clarity, courage, and unyielding truth. You're trying to humiliate me, he finally spat, voice wavering. No, Jasmine said, icy and resolute. I am ensuring the truth is undeniable. I am holding power accountable, exposing every betrayal, every deception, every false promise. That is justice, and the nation is watching. The chamber fell silent, the tension suspended like a drawn bowstring. Every heartbeat seemed amplified, every breath synchronized with the rhythm of the confrontation. Jasmine's unflinching presence, her razor-sharp words, and the weight of the evidence created a storm that the room and the world could not ignore. Across continents, viewers gasped, whispered, and watched in awe. This was not mere politics. This was a collision of truth and power, courage against bluster, a historic spectacle. One woman had faced the most powerful man on the planet, and the world watched as she refused to yield. The air in the chamber vibrated with electricity, charged by the intensity of a battle between principle and authority. Jasmine Crockett had delivered a storm of words and conviction, leaving the outcome uncertain, but undeniable. History was being written before every eye, live and unblinking. Trump's eyes narrowed, a flash of desperation breaking through the fury. He motioned subtly to the side, and suddenly a man rose from the back of the room, a self-proclaimed witness, appearing with impeccable timing, ready to defend the embattled former president. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Some senators exchanged skeptical glances, journalists sharpened their pens, and millions of viewers leaned closer to their screens. This witness, Trump began, voice strained but forceful, will confirm the inaccuracies and misrepresentations presented here today. What you see as betrayal is merely a misunderstanding. The record will speak through him. The man stepped forward, clearing his throat with exaggerated confidence. He carried a binder, gesturing to the cameras as though delivering final judgment. For a fleeting moment, the room was gripped by uncertainty. Could this be the lifeline Trump desperately needed? Jasmine's eyes narrowed imperceptibly, but her expression remained composed. She leaned forward, resting her hands lightly on the table, every nerve alert. The chamber fell into a tense silence, sensing the invisible countdown before the inevitable clash. Mr. Witness, Jasmine said, voice calm, deliberate, measured like a scalpel poised for incision. Please state your full name and occupation for the record. John Harrison, the man stammered. I am an analyst, consultant. Consultant? Jasmine interrupted smoothly, her tone polite but icy. Consultant to whom? For how long? And have you ever been formally affiliated with any government oversight committees or investigative boards? The man faltered, his carefully constructed facade cracking under the precision of her questioning. He stumbled over answers, words tripping over themselves, revealing gaps and inconsistencies that no amount of bluster could cover. And, Jasmine continued, her voice steady and commanding, have you ever signed any affidavits or provided testimony in federal hearings prior to this moment? No, not exactly, he whispered, the confidence he arrived with vanishing under the intensity of her gaze. That will be noted, Jasmine said, leaning back just slightly, letting the weight of silence carry her point. 3 questions, 3 carefully chosen strikes, and the so-called witness collapsed under the undeniable force of truth. A collective gasp spread across the chamber. The buzz of whispers, the shuffle of papers, the nervous coughs, all fell away into a dead, thick silence. Journalists froze mid-typing, cameras focused on the crumbling facade, and senators sat rigid, absorbing the seismic shift. Even Trump's supporters in the room hesitated, uncertainty creeping into their expressions. Trump's face drained of color. He opened his mouth to shout, to defend, but no words formed. The elaborate ruse meant to salvage his position had been obliterated in a matter of moments by Jasmine's surgical precision. The chamber felt like it was holding its breath, teetering on the edge of revelation and ruin. Jasmine's voice broke the silence, calm but unyielding. The truth cannot be masked by theatrics, evidence does not bend to convenience, and false witnesses, however well-timed, cannot rewrite history. Every eye followed her as she gestured subtly toward the documents still laid out before her. Each page reinforced the narrative, each fact immutable and irrefutable. The room seemed to shrink, focusing entirely on her, as if the air itself bowed to the power of reason and clarity. Trump's allies shifted uneasily in their seats. Some whispered frantically, trying to salvage coherence, while others simply stared, eyes wide, the cracks in their allegiance beginning to show. Across the chamber, the tension was palpable. A monolith of authority challenged not with violence, but with intellect, evidence, and unshakable resolve. The once dominant roar of Trump's command had been replaced with hesitation, uncertainty, a palpable vulnerability. His last-ditch effort had failed, and the room sensed it. The tide had turned decisively, and history's pen was now firmly in Jasmine Crockett's hand. Reporters typed furiously, microphones captured every nuance, and millions of viewers watched in rapt attention as the narrative shifted, irrevocable and electrifying. Social media erupted with disbelief and awe. Witness exposed. Our truth wins. Crockett unstoppable. Every viewer could feel it, the unmistakable thrill of watching power challenged by relentless justice. Trump's expression hardened, a flicker of rage still present, but it was tempered by the unmistakable recognition. The battle he thought he could control was slipping from his grasp. Every carefully orchestrated plan, every bluff and manipulation had crumbled in the face of clarity, courage, and unwavering truth. Jasmine remained poised, calm as ever, letting the silence underscore the magnitude of the moment. Her victory was quiet, yet deafening in its impact. She had dismantled a ruse, exposed deception, and reinforced the fact that no amount of intimidation could withstand evidence and intellect combined. The chamber seemed to hold its breath for a long, suspended moment. Then slowly, reactions began to ripple. Some Trump supporters looked away, discomfort shadowing their faces. Senators leaned closer, absorbing every detail. Journalists adjusted cameras, capturing the scene for history. And the millions of viewers worldwide remained frozen in awe, watching a woman redefine courage before the most powerful man in the world. Jasmine Crockett had done it again. 1 woman, 3 questions, an unyielding commitment to truth, and a falsehood meant to protect power lay shattered at her feet. History was not just being witnessed, it was being actively rewritten, and no one would soon forget the storm that had just passed. For a fleeting moment, silence enveloped the chamber. Trump's shoulders slumped, his hands trembling slightly as he raised them in a gesture of vulnerability. The cameras didn't blink. Millions of viewers around the world leaned in, disbelief etched on their faces. And then, in a move no one saw coming, Trump's expression softened. His voice, hoarse and wavering, took on a plaintive tone. I have been misunderstood, he stammered, voice cracking, eyes glistening as if tears were threatening to spill. I only wanted to protect my legacy, my family, my reputation. The shift was instantaneous. Some senators leaned back, caught off guard, while a few journalists scribbled notes furiously, sensing the potential narrative twist. A handful of viewers, especially those loyal to Trump, seemed momentarily persuaded, their expressions softening, hearts tugged by what appeared to be raw, human emotion. But Jasmine Crockett did not flinch. She remained upright, composed, her gaze unwavering. She had anticipated every tactic, every ploy, and she refused to be ensnared by a carefully staged display of sentimentality. Leaning slightly forward, her voice steady yet powerful, she began to speak, not to counter, but to illuminate. Mr. President, Jasmine said, her tone firm but calm, I have witnessed pain, loss, and betrayal firsthand. I have seen families torn apart by lies, communities crushed under the weight of injustice. I have felt the sting of a system that allows power to shield wrongdoing. And I can tell you, justice does not require tears, especially not manufactured ones. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle like a stone dropped into still water. The chamber remained frozen, every breath caught, every gaze fixed upon her. Jasmine's story, distilled from her own life, painted a vivid picture. A young girl who had watched injustice unravel those she loved, who had resolved early on to fight with every ounce of strength and every shred of integrity at her disposal. My fight, she continued, voice gaining warmth and resonance, is not against one man, or one office, or one party. My fight is for every person whose voice has been silenced, every truth that has been buried, every life impacted by the negligence or manipulation of those entrusted with authority. Power may evoke sympathy, it may manipulate emotion, but truth demands clarity, courage, and unwavering commitment. As her words hung in the chamber, the audience's response was immediate. A ripple of applause spread, tentative at first, then growing into a wave. Social media erupted. Hashtags like Chash Justice Warrior, Chashash Crockett vs Corruption, Tarashon Truth Over Tears trended within minutes. Millions shared clips of her testimony, analyzing every pause, every inflection, every subtle gesture that conveyed integrity and resilience. Trump's eyes flickered with frustration. The carefully constructed mask of victimhood he had worn moments ago now seemed flimsy, inadequate against the undeniable authority Jasmine projected. His momentary attempt to sway sentiment had been neutralized, stripped of impact by the force of authenticity and lived experience she radiated. Even within his own camp, unease began to take root. Loyalists whispered nervously, sensing that the tide was irrevocably shifting. For every fleeting glimmer of doubt, Jasmine's words provided clarity, leaving no space for deception to take hold. Every anecdote she shared, every memory invoked, reinforced her unwavering position. Justice cannot be simulated. It must be lived, fought for, and proven through action. Trump's voice faltered. But the people, they don't understand. Jasmine raised a hand slightly, not in anger, but in measured command. The people understand more than you think. They see what is real, and they see what is contrived. They see courage and deception in equal measure. And today they have witnessed both, side by side, in full view. A hush fell once more, heavier now, loaded with a collective recognition. Every eye in the chamber, every lens capturing the moment, every screen in homes across the nation, held fast. History was no longer just being written. It was being defined by choices, by clarity, by the refusal to yield to manufactured emotion. Jasmine's eyes swept the room, a silent acknowledgement of the gravity of the moment. Millions around the globe watched, riveted. She had dismantled a strategy designed to manipulate. She had countered the unexpected, and she had done so without losing the thread of her own story, her own truth. Trump's shoulders slumped further, defeated not by brute force, but by the undeniable power of authenticity, evidence, and moral authority. The chamber, once a battlefield of rhetoric and bluster, had transformed into a testament to resilience, intellect, and courage. And as the applause grew, rising from the chamber to echo across the nation and into countless living rooms worldwide, one thing became abundantly clear. Jasmine Crockett was no longer just a challenger. She was a symbol, a warrior of justice, a living embodiment of truth confronting power, unyielding and impossible to ignore. The storm had not passed. It had only transformed, its force now concentrated into the singular figure standing firm at the center of history. The unexpected twist, the attempted manipulation, had only reinforced what millions already understood. Courage and truth, once unleashed, cannot be contained. And in that charged silence, punctuated by applause and the murmurs of awe, the world recognized the reality. A new chapter had begun, one where authenticity and moral courage would define the battleground, and one woman had already proven she could hold the line. Trump's eyes blazed with desperation, his final gambit flashing in them like a dagger. He leaned forward, slamming both hands onto the polished desk, and hissed venomously, "You are nothing but a pawn, a servant of global forces trying to undermine this nation. Ms. Crockett, you are a tool of the unseen powers plotting against America." The chamber erupted instantly. Shouts, gasps, and furious murmurs collided, a cacophony of disbelief and outrage. Senators leapt to their feet, journalists scrambled, cameras whirred, and every microphone strained to capture the storm of chaos. Social media feeds exploded with live clips, hashtags trending within minutes. One Crockett exposed, das Trump accusations, Achen, political firestorm. Trump's words were designed to shock, to provoke fear and hesitation, to paint Jasmine as a conspirator. But she did not flinch. The moment the accusation left his lips, she rose, her movements deliberate, commanding, unshakable. Every eye in the chamber was drawn to her, every lens capturing her next move. Her voice cut through the uproar like a sword forged in steel. "Enough," Jasmine declared, the single word reverberating with authority and unyielding conviction. "Enough of lies, enough of theatrics, enough of attempting to manipulate fear to obscure truth." She gestured to the documents laid meticulously before her. Hundreds of pages, emails, contracts, recordings, and financial records. Each one a nail in the coffin of deception. Her tone rose, precise and unwavering, each word striking like a hammer. "Here," she said, her voice echoing in every corner of the chamber, "are the records that expose a web of deception, manipulation, and corruption. Every claim, every promise, every excuse has been documented. And here today, it will be laid bare for all to see. No global conspiracy, no shadowy puppet masters, just the incontrovertible truth and the evidence that proves it." The room went from chaos to stunned silence. Even Trump's most ardent allies hesitated, glancing nervously at one another as the weight of the evidence became undeniable. Reporters leaned forward, cameras capturing every reaction, every flicker of disbelief, and millions of viewers held their collective breath worldwide. Jasmine began her presentation systematically, almost surgical in its precision. Each claim Trump had made was met with fact, every insinuation countered with proof. The sequence was flawless, relentless, and merciless, revealing patterns of deception and contradictions that even the most loyal followers could not ignore. "You see," Jasmine continued, pacing slightly, commanding the chamber with her presence, "the truth is not subjective. It does not bend to intimidation, and it cannot be rewritten by theatrics. You have accused me of serving hidden powers, but the real power I serve is the people, the principles of justice, and the unassailable facts laid before us today." The camera panned across the chamber, capturing the stunned faces of senators, aides, journalists, and even Trump himself. His lips parted, his hands twitching, trying to grasp at a rebuttal that had no footing. The narrative he had attempted to force had collapsed under the meticulous weight of evidence and Jasmine's unwavering resolve. A murmur swept through the room, quickly rising into applause, tentative at first, then swelling into a crescendo of recognition and awe. Some stood, some clapped silently, Others were frozen, absorbing the magnitude of what they had just witnessed. Social media feeds erupted further, millions sharing, commenting, debating. Justice served. Crockett vs. Trump. Kind of moment of truth. Jasmine's eyes locked on Trump, unwavering and unwaveringly fierce. History will remember this moment, she declared, her voice a clarion call over the storm of chaos. Not for accusations, nor theatrics, nor fear. It will remember courage, it will remember truth, and it will remember accountability. And every action, every document, every choice you made to obscure the truth has been laid bare for everyone to see. Trump's hands trembled on the desk. His usual dominance faltered, replaced by a growing realization that he was not controlling the narrative. He was being exposed by it. The room's atmosphere shifted palpably. Allies whispered frantically, aides shifted nervously, and the audience's awe intensified. Jasmine's declaration was not just words. It was a statement of power and principle. Each syllable reverberated with moral authority, piercing through the noise and theatrics, cutting to the core of the truth. The chamber, the nation, and millions watching worldwide understood. This was the moment that defined not only careers, but the very nature of justice and integrity. For a heartbeat, silence reigned, the chamber holding its breath as if awaiting an inevitable eruption. Then slowly the response came, a mixture of applause, shocked whispers, and the hum of cameras recording a historical turning point. This was no ordinary hearing. This was a battlefield, a crucible where truth had finally pierced through layers of deception and bravado. And as the echoes of revelation settled, one thing became unmistakably clear. Jasmine Crockett had not only survived the storm, she had commanded it. In that chamber on that day, history had paused to witness a singular moment. A woman standing unyielding, truth laid bare, and the most audacious attempt at manipulation completely undone. This was, without question, the defining moment of her career, a culmination of courage, intellect, and relentless pursuit of justice. A single instant that would echo across time, remembered as the day when chaos, accusation, and fear met clarity, evidence, and unwavering integrity. The chamber, still vibrating from the impact, had become a testament. Power may roar, deception may strike, but truth, meticulously presented, courageously defended, always finds its mark. Trump's face contorted with fury, his voice cracking as he attempted one final, desperate volley. You do not understand. I built, I gave, I... His words faltered, disjointed, each syllable failing to carry the weight it once commanded. The roaring authority he had wielded for years now sounded brittle, hollow, incapable of sustaining the facade of control. Jasmine Crockett's gaze remained unwavering. Calm yet commanding, she allowed the chamber to absorb the collapse of bluster before responding. Every pause she left hung in the air like a carefully placed dagger, forcing the room, and millions watching live around the globe, to lean in, hearts pounding, eyes fixed. The committee members began to shift noticeably. Subtle nods, quick glances exchanged between colleagues, murmurs under breaths, all signs that the tide had decisively turned. The narrative that Trump had sought to dominate was unraveling before their eyes, thread by thread, under the precision and unyielding courage of Jasmine's testimony. Reporters typed furiously, capturing every falter, every tremor, every moment of vulnerability. Headlines were already forming before the gavel could strike again. Trump falters under Crockett's onslaught. Justice prevails in historic hearing. The president stumbles before a warrior of truth. The global audience riveted, shared, and commented, turning the unfolding drama into a viral phenomenon, the story blazing across social media like wildfire. But Trump was not yet finished. Despite the visible cracks, the sputtering voice, and the undeniable shift in perception, he made one last attempt to seize control. His hands trembled as he slammed them against the desk, trying to project strength, to recover authority. I will not. I cannot. This is unfair. Lies. Fabrications. Jasmine leaned forward, her presence unshakable, her eyes locking onto his with unwavering intensity. Unfair, she said, her tone quiet but sharp, slicing through the chaos like a blade. Let me remind you, Mr. President, truth is not unfair. Facts are not lies, and justice is not swayed by fear, tantrums, or desperation. The chamber fell into a tense silence. Even the most loyal aides in the room could no longer hide their unease. Cameras zoomed in on Trump's face, a mixture of rage, disbelief, and the dawning realization that the battle he had dominated for years was slipping through his fingers. The carefully orchestrated intimidation, the theatrics, the attempts to manipulate emotions, all crumbled under the weight of methodical evidence and Jasmine's unwavering resolve. Jasmine did not pause. Every word, every gesture, every reference to documented proof was precise, deliberate, and unrelenting. You have had every opportunity to answer for your actions, to provide clarity, to step into accountability. Yet you continue to grasp at theatrics, to shout over evidence, to hide behind authority instead of facing facts. The committee leaned forward, attention fixed. Senators' faces revealed subtle shifts, acknowledgement, respect, and a growing inclination toward alignment with the one who had not wavered once in the storm. The audience, both live and worldwide, felt the momentum crystallize. The moral and factual high ground had been decisively claimed. Trump's voice faltered further. The fire of authority was replaced by sputters of disbelief. His attempts at dominance, threats, accusations, and theatrics had lost their potency. Each faltering syllable was a testimony to Jasmine's unshakable composure and the undeniable truth she wielded. The press corps captured every nuance, the tremor in his hands, the twitch in his jaw, the hollow sound of words that could no longer command belief. Millions of viewers watched, enthralled and riveted, as the seemingly invincible figure of Trump appeared diminished not by force, but by integrity, courage, and fact. And then Jasmine delivered the final blow, not with anger, but with precision. She laid out a sequence of irrefutable evidence, timelines, emails, public statements juxtaposed against documented reality. The chain of deception, previously hidden behind bravado and rhetoric, now shone in full view. History will remember this moment, she said, her voice carrying the weight of conviction. Not for the bluster of those who fear exposure, but for the courage of those who dare to confront it. Accountability is not negotiable. Integrity is not optional. And no amount of power can rewrite what is evident to all who see it. The chamber erupted, not in chaos, but in acknowledgement. Senators, aides, journalists, and witnesses all absorbed the gravity of the confrontation. Trump sat back, shoulders slumped, eyes wide, attempting to gather himself, yet unable to regain the command he once held. The battle of words, evidence, and courage had reached its apex, and the outcome was clear. Millions watched worldwide as the headlines began to solidify. Trump collapses under Crockett's command. Justice triumphs in historic hearing. One woman holds the line against power. The narrative was set, and history would record this confrontation as a defining moment of accountability, courage, and unwavering truth. And yet, despite the collapse, despite the clear victory on the horizon, Trump's hands twitched, his lips parted, searching for a final word. A last-ditch effort to salvage authority. But Jasmine, poised and unwavering, simply waited, letting the silence itself underscore the truth. The power of integrity, evidence, and fearless resolve had spoken louder than any desperate plea. In that moment, the chamber, the nation, and millions around the globe recognized it. The words of one woman, wielded with precision, courage, and unwavering commitment, had brought the most powerful man in the room to the edge. Not with physical force, but with the sheer weight of truth. The hearing had reached a climax, and though the final chapter had yet to be closed, one thing was undeniable. Trump had been undone, not by allies or attacks, but by the relentless, unyielding, and inescapable power of Jasmine Crockett's voice, evidence, and courage. Then, unexpectedly, Trump fell silent. For a heartbeat, the room seemed to freeze. His lips curled into a faint, calculated smirk, a smile that sent a shiver down the spine of everyone present. No words came, only the tension thickening like storm clouds before a tempest. Jasmine's eyes narrowed, every muscle in her body alert, every sense tuned to detect the next move. The chamber was deathly quiet. Even the murmurs of aides, the shuffling of papers, and the clicks of cameras seemed suspended. Millions watching worldwide held their breath, waiting. The silence stretched, pregnant with anticipation. Trump's smirk grew imperceptibly, a signal of a carefully plotted maneuver. And then, with deliberate calm, he slid a folder across the table toward the center, its corners crisp, its weight calculated to command attention. "This," he said at last, his voice smooth and measured, "is the final evidence that will prove my innocence and expose the true manipulators behind this so-called crusade." Jasmine's gaze flickered over the folder. Every instinct screamed caution. She had faced deceit before, but something about this pause, this precise staging, felt different, more insidious, more dangerous. The room leaned in collectively, the chamber now transformed into a crucible of suspense. With trembling hands, Trump opened the folder and began to display documents. Neat stacks of paper, highlighted passages, and signatures that appeared to confirm a narrative in his favor. The room reacted instantly. Some senators furrowed their brows, questions forming silently in their minds. Reporters whispered and typed furiously. Social media feeds erupted with speculation, millions now witnessing the most intricate part of the confrontation. But Jasmine Crockett did not flinch. She stepped forward, her presence commanding the room. Every movement deliberate, every breath controlled, every eye fixed upon her. She had anticipated deception, and she knew the smell of fabrication when she saw it. "Mr. President," she said, her voice calm but razor-sharp, "we will examine your evidence carefully. But let us be clear, the truth does not bend to appearances, to theatrics, or to carefully forged facades." She reached for her own meticulously organized documents, prepared for this very moment. The chamber, once alive with uproar, now quieted, all attention pivoting to the clash of intellect, integrity, and cunning. Trump's smile remained, but it flickered, revealing cracks beneath the surface. He had relied on the sophistication of forgery and timing, believing it might tilt the chamber, sway perception, or even cause Jasmine to hesitate. But she did not waver. Jasmine began dissecting the documents methodically. Each signature was traced, every annotation cross-checked, timelines scrutinized with a precision honed through years of investigative rigor. Slowly the cracks appeared, inconsistencies, anomalies, subtle errors that only a trained eye could detect. Everyone revealed the deceit embedded within the elegant display of papers. The room's atmosphere shifted palpably. Senators leaned closer, murmuring to one another. Reporters paused, realizing that the so-called final evidence was not the trump card it appeared to be. The tide had begun to turn once again. Millions watching worldwide gasped collectively as the tension escalated to its zenith. Trump's jaw tightened. He tried to interject, to insist, to intimidate, but each attempt was met with calm counterpoints, precise citations, and unassailable logic from Jasmine. Her words cut like blades through the haze of manipulation, exposing the artifice for all to see. "Every document," Jasmine continued, her voice rising only slightly above the charged silence, "carries the fingerprints of desperation, the hallmarks of fabrication, and the unmistakable trace of falsehood. This is not evidence. It is theater, meticulously constructed to deceive. And yet, like all deception, it crumbles under the light of scrutiny and truth." The chamber erupted into murmurs and gasps. Trump supporters faltered, some leaning back, others whispering anxiously. The cameras panned across the room, capturing expressions of shock, disbelief, and dawning comprehension. Every angle, every lens, every live feed worldwide was fixed on Jasmine's methodical unraveling of the deception. Trump's smirk faltered. His carefully constructed aura of control had eroded in plain sight. The documents, once meant to be his salvation, had become his undoing. And the chamber, once teetering between chaos and curiosity, now recognized an immutable fact. Jasmine Crockett was in command, even in the face of the most cunning and desperate maneuver he had left. Her eyes swept across the room, and for a moment the silence itself seemed to roar. The tension, the anticipation, The battle of intellect and integrity had reached its apex. Millions across the globe watched, captivated as the most intricate play of deception was dismantled in real time. And in that suspended moment, the world understood something profound. Power can stage theatrics, authority can command fear, but the combination of courage, preparation, and relentless commitment to truth is unstoppable. Jasmine had navigated the eye of the storm with precision, her every move ensuring that deception could not prevail. The hearing had shifted irrevocably. The final chapter of manipulation, of theatrics, and of desperate gambits was underway. But one woman had already proven she could endure, analyze, and expose even the most dangerous plays. The battle had entered its climax, and the storm was far from over. But the line had been drawn, and Jasmine Crockett stood unyielding, ready for whatever came next. Trump, sensing a last chance to reclaim authority, theatrically produced a new set of documents. He placed them on the table with deliberate flourish, each page seemingly pristine, each signature carefully aligned. "Behold," he declared, voice booming, "the irrefutable evidence of my innocence. These documents prove everything you claim is false. Examine them, and you will see that I have acted honorably at every turn." His supporters erupted immediately, a chorus of exclamations and applause, convinced that the tide had turned. Phones lifted to capture the moment. Social media feeds lit up instantly with excitement. Shachi Trump vindicated, Shah's Jasmine overturned, Shah's final evidence. For a fleeting moment, it seemed as if the narrative might tilt back in his favor. But Jasmine's eyes narrowed. She leaned slightly forward, her expression calm, calculating, and mercilessly focused. Every instinct honed from years of legal scrutiny told her this was a trap, a sophisticated deception crafted to exploit hesitation and awe. She inhaled, letting the tension build just enough to command every gaze in the chamber, every eye in the world watching, and then spoke. "Mr. President," she said, her voice cutting through the noise like a razor, "you may present these documents with confidence, but confidence alone does not equate to truth. Every word, every punctuation mark, every notation carries a signature of authenticity or of fabrication, and we will examine them with the rigor that truth demands." Trump's supporters cheered louder, unaware of the impending reversal. They believed in the spectacle, in the dramatics, in the carefully staged performance. But Jasmine was not swayed by theatrics. She began methodically, almost ritualistically, scrutinizing the documents line by line. Her pen hovered, then pointed. "Notice the inconsistency in the dates here," she said, highlighting a passage that contradicted verified timelines. "And here, the signature is subtly misaligned, inconsistent with official filings. Each of these anomalies alone might seem trivial, but taken together, they reveal the unmistakable pattern of manipulation, carefully disguised to appear legitimate." The room's atmosphere changed instantly. Senators leaned forward, aides exchanged urgent whispers, and journalists paused mid-note, their expressions shifting from curiosity to astonishment. Millions watching online felt the suspense heighten with every revelation. The so-called final evidence was unraveling right before their eyes. Trump's face hardened. He opened his mouth to object, but his words faltered. The carefully constructed facade was cracking. Every attempt to regain control was met by Jasmine's unshakable analysis. Each counterpoint she made pierced the narrative he had desperately tried to stage. "Even the formatting," Jasmine continued, her voice steady yet searing, "betrays intentional fabrication. The spacing, the font, the alignment, all meticulously engineered to create the illusion of legitimacy. But truth is patient, and truth does not hide from scrutiny." The chamber became a crucible of tension. The supporters who had cheered moments ago now exchanged uneasy glances. Trump's advisors shifted nervously, realizing that the documents meant to vindicate him were instead a glaring testament to his desperation. Cameras captured the subtle tremor in his hands, the rapid blink of disbelief, the stuttered attempts to form a coherent defense. Jasmine, calm as ever, dissected each page with relentless precision. She exposed errors in wording, contradictions with verified statements, and subtle alterations that, when combined, revealed an elaborate attempt to manipulate perception. The audience, both present and streaming worldwide, was transfixed. Millions had witnessed countless political dramas, but few had seen deception dismantled with such surgical clarity. "The illusion is clear," Jasmine said finally, her voice unwavering, carrying across the chamber and into every living room watching globally. "What you present as truth is an elaborate fabrication. This is not evidence. It is an attempt to deceive, to distract, and to manipulate the perception of those who seek justice." A deathly silence followed, punctuated only by the sound of cameras clicking, pens scribbling, and the shallow breaths of those in awe. Trump's supporters faltered. Some whispered frantically, others froze, unable to reconcile their belief with the clarity of Jasmine's exposition. The documents, once thought to turn the tide, now cemented her position as the unyielding guardian of truth. Trump's lips tightened into a thin line. His eyes darted across the chamber, searching for a lifeline, a means to salvage authority. But every attempt to shift attention, to obfuscate, to reclaim the narrative, was neutralized by the meticulous, unrelenting force of Jasmine's evidence and poise. By the time she finished, the chamber had shifted irrevocably. Trump's gambit had backfired spectacularly. The documents meant to defend him were now public proof of deception. Reporters immediately began typing, already crafting headlines that would circulate worldwide. Trump's last gambit exposed. Crockett shatters fabricated evidence. The truth prevails on global stage. And as the murmurs of shock and awe spread through the chamber, Jasmine Crockett remained poised, unwavering, the embodiment of justice, clarity, and relentless moral courage. Every eye was on her, every mind captivated. History millions around the globe knew had been made, not with brute force, not with theatrics or fear, but with the unwavering pursuit of truth. The storm had reached its apex, and though the echoes of deception had raged violently, they now lay exposed, dismantled by one woman's brilliance and courage. In that moment, the world understood something undeniable. Even the most cunning strategies, the most intricate deceptions, and the most powerful gambits could be undone when confronted by unwavering integrity, meticulous preparation, and the courage to speak truth into power. Trump sat frozen, the weight of the chamber pressing down on him like a physical force. His face, once animated with dominance and calculated bravado, was now a mask of disbelief. Disbelief mingled with fear. He opened his mouth, searched for words, but none came. The carefully constructed walls of authority he had maintained for decades had collapsed before the unyielding precision of Jasmine Crockett's assault on deceit. The chamber, long tense and brimming with anticipation, erupted. Standing ovations rose spontaneously. Hands clapped with the force of thunder, echoing against the marble walls. Senators, aides, journalists, and witnesses all rose to their feet, some shouting in awe, others simply stunned into silence, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had transpired. Cameras captured every angle, the rising chorus of recognition for truth and courage, the faces of awe, and the stark contrast of a powerful man undone by his own falsehoods. Jasmine remained seated for a moment, absorbing the energy of the room, her expression unreadable, composed and cold as steel. Her eyes swept over the chamber, landing on Trump and then on the witnesses and officials, the pulse of her resolve radiating outward. She did not raise her hands in triumph. She did not smile. Her victory was measured, deliberate, tempered by the awareness that justice was never final. It was a continuous struggle. "Today," she said, her voice cutting clearly through the din of applause, "justice has prevailed. But let us not be naive. Tomorrow the work continues. Deception, corruption, and the misuse of power will attempt to return. And when it does, we must stand ready, unwavering." Her words landed like stones dropped into a still lake, each ripple spreading outward, reaching every corner of the room and every screen broadcasting to millions around the globe. Social media feeds exploded with hashtags, "Your justice wins," "Your Jasmine Crockett defends truth," "Power held accountable." Millions witnessed a historical moment, an inflection point where one woman had confronted the pinnacle of authority and emerged as the embodiment of moral courage. Trump finally exhaled, a hollow sound, as if the act of breathing itself was a concession. His supporters remained seated, stunned, some whispering to each other, others staring blankly, struggling to reconcile their loyalty with the undeniable spectacle of exposure. The documents, the evidence, the meticulously dismantled fabrications, every tool of deception he had brought to the table lay impotent in the face of unwavering scrutiny. Jasmine stood slowly, the chamber following her movement in a collective intake of breath. She moved with a grace that was both commanding and austere, a living testament to the idea that power is not measured by position or intimidation, but by discipline, clarity, and unyielding principle. Her eyes, cold yet focused, scanned the assembly. The weight of history seemed to settle upon her shoulders, but she bore it effortlessly, unshaken by the enormity of the moment. "Let this be remembered," she continued, her voice resolute, echoing across the chamber and into living rooms worldwide. "Not for the fear that power can instill, but for the triumph that truth and courage can achieve. We are reminded today that one person, steadfast in integrity, can confront the highest authority and alter the course of history." Ah! The applause rose again, louder this time, a collective roar that seemed to shake the very foundations of the chamber. Senators who had been skeptical now stood fully, nodding in recognition, some wiping away the small, unacknowledged tears of awe. The media captured every moment, the shaking of hands, the applause, the astonished faces of those who had witnessed the unraveling of deception in real time. Trump's silence was absolute now. His presence remained, but his aura of invincibility had been irrevocably shattered. The documents, the theatrics, the attempts at intimidation, all had failed to withstand the scrutiny, precision, and courage of a single woman determined to defend truth. Jasmine allowed herself a small, measured pause, the kind that conveyed authority without arrogance. She looked around once more, then directed her gaze toward the global audience. Millions, now glued to screens, felt the gravity of the lesson. Courage is contagious, truth is relentless, and justice, though often slow, ultimately cannot be silenced. "Remember this day," Jasmine concluded, her voice steady, resonant, and unwavering. "It is a reminder that no power is absolute, no deception invincible, and no truth beyond defense. The battle continues, but today, justice has not only spoken, it has roared." The chamber erupted once more, a cacophony of sound that symbolized the culmination of struggle, courage, and triumph. Cameras flashed, reporters scrambled, and the live broadcast captured every detail for millions to witness worldwide. Jasmine's figure, calm and composed amidst the storm of recognition and applause, would become iconic, a symbol of moral courage in a world often blinded by power and deception. In that charged silence following the uproar, one truth was undeniable. Jasmine Crockett had not merely defended herself or presented evidence. She had rewritten the narrative of authority and accountability. She had stood against the most powerful man in the world, dismantled every stratagem, and reminded humanity that courage and integrity are the ultimate forces capable of toppling deception. As the echoes of applause faded into a sustained murmur of awe and admiration, the chamber and the world beyond understood the significance of the moment. The hearing had concluded, the storm had subsided, and the legacy of this confrontation, the image of a single, unwavering justice warrior facing the highest authority, would endure in history. Jasmine's final words lingered long after the echoes faded. Today, justice has triumphed. Tomorrow the fight continues, and we must be ready. And with that, a new chapter in history was etched, one defined not by power or position, but by the unyielding pursuit of truth, courage, and justice. In a world where power can intimidate and deception can dazzle, Jasmine Crockett's courage reminds us that integrity is the true measure of strength. One voice, unwavering and fearless, can pierce through lies, inspire millions, and shift the course of history. Her story teaches us that justice is not inherited, nor is it given. It is claimed through persistence, truth, and moral courage. Let this be a call to live boldly, to speak honestly, and to act with compassion, for every choice rooted in righteousness ripples outward, shaping a better world for all. If this confrontation shook you, Don't scroll. Feel it. Question it. Talk about it. Like, comment, and share it with someone who still believes courage can challenge power. Subscribe to Harrison Stories, where truth refuses to be silenced. Hit the bell, because the next revelation could upend everything you think you know. It's intense, and it might just change the way you see justice and authority. This story is a fictional dramatization inspired by real struggles for justice and the courage to stand against corruption. Any resemblance to actual people or events is coincidental or symbolic, meant to provoke reflection and dialogue. Thanks for watching. Justice isn't given, it's fought for. This is Harrison Stories,